Carl and Brendan here from Brrraaains A Head-Banging Life, gbhblofficial for short. Big question. And it's our top 3 favorite Machine Head tracks, which is way harder these days than it used to be because there's a fucking a catalog of music that you could draw from, to the point where I almost felt guilty focusing my 3 favorite on 2 albums. 2 out of 3 from 1 album. So like that's kind of a thing, and like that was a bit like, oh shit, that's where I'm at. And I end up looking and going, oh come on, you love Locust, you love Bloodstone and Diamonds, you know there's good shit there. What's on there? And it's like, okay, can I pull anything from there? Not when I compared it. One of these tracks that I have, I almost wanted to leave off out of spite, but then I realized I was being stupid about it, and it's like, yeah, like just like, no, I'm not putting that in there. No, but it's like, no, not only do you love it, but you also recognize it as arguably one of the best, if not the best, Machine Head song ever written. So like, you know that, but you also feel that and never get bored of it, and so on and so on and so on. I'm probably giving the game away about lots. But
I reckon, like, based on what you said so far, that we've only got 1 track different in this.
Agreed. I'm 99% sure we have just 1 track different. And I reckon I could predict what your different one might be.
We will see.
Well, yeah. I did the Metallica one starting, so you can start this one.
Okay. The one instant, no doubt, 100%, my favorite Machine Head song of all time today, from Through the Ashes of Empires, is the song Descend the Shades of Night. Now, firstly, Through the Ashes of Empire, like, what an album, right? What a fucking album. What a comeback and all that sort of stuff. So much you can say about that album. And there are other songs on that album that I absolutely adore, but this is my only song from that album. Wow. I mean, I'll just try to, the first time I heard this, I listened to this song so much, man. I don't know how many times. Like, it's got to be in the, like, many hundreds, right? Do you know what I mean? Like, ridiculous numbers. I loved it. It was the first time, it wasn't the only time Machine had done it, but it was the first time it had captured me quite so much, which was this kind of melodic, longer style song with a softer singing, still dark and heavy, but softer, you know, cleaner. Then with the heavier sections of it, and then the proper dual harmonized guitar solo, like the first, or one of the first memories of, you know, Phil and Rob kind of going back to back and just playing out this solo that probably doesn't, but sometimes, like, in a good way, feels like it goes on for about 2.5 minutes. Like, you know what I mean? It goes through chapter after chapter. Something that actually a style that became more a focus on albums that came after, and actually you can maybe credit that style down to being one of the things that really pushed, you know, the Blackening and songs after that forwards. I love it. I think it is perfection in a way, but it's raw perfection, and that's what I love about it too. Because the thing about Through the Ashes of Empires is, one, for as an album, it's quite a raw album. Like, it's not like massively polished, whereas like later albums become more and more polished. So there's still, you know, a bit of fuzz and a bit of like groove and everything like that going on. But that song for me encapsulates the idea of epic kind of groove metal, you know.
You said everything there. I'm just going to throw in my experience, because I always feel like this is well worth saying, well worth reminding. But I can remember specifically where I was when I heard this song, or when I properly experienced it. I can also remember who's to blame for that. And he happens to be sitting on the opposite side of the screen to me. And this was following a period of, well, obviously, of the Supercharged and all that. And I had interest in Machine Head, but I didn't care that much, to be honest. But I remember this was a very insistent, oh, you must hear this because this is something different. You've not heard this before, and so on. And I remember it was Shooters Hill, and I was coming home from work and it was dark. I always remember that specifically. That really sticks in my head. That's my sort of association with her. I echo everything you were saying, purely through time and repetition and appreciation. After more and more songs came out and they weren't matching or weren't able to reach that level of just mind-blowing that I had, as great as they were, and there are mind-blowing tracks in Machine Head's catalog later on, the Descend Shades of Night gets the props for being first, basically. For being the starting point on an album that is so strong overall. Nothing else is from Brendan's on it, but on one of my others also comes from this album. but it still pales in comparison. So yeah, of course, Descend of Shade Night was there. Had to be.
Had to be.
What was your other one? Second one then?
All right, so I'm gonna go back a little bit on this one. This might be the one that the unknown one.
Okay.
And I'm going back to the More Things Change album.
All right.
And for a song that, for me personally, was firstly my first favorite Machine Head track from this album, and the thing that made me always say that, and I stand by this today, and care what people say, The More Things Change is a stronger album overall than Burn My Eyes.
Yeah.
And I love Burn My Eyes, but overall, it was more brave, expansive, a bit more progressive, had a darker tone, you know, and the song that encapsulated everything that Machine Head would eventually become for me was Violate.
Yeah.
Because the first time I heard this song on there, I had never heard Machine Head do this before, and this was a much longer song with a slower build up, clean singing in the beginning, then building up to a big booming chorus, which now would be, oh, that's just standard Machine Head, right? That's the template. But back then it wasn't. It was different. And then there was a big couple of album gap in the middle where that style didn't reappear. And then Descend of Shade of Night was suddenly like a new version of that style. But Violate for me is where that stuff started, man. And Violate to this day is still it's obviously one of my three favorite Machine Head tracks, otherwise I wouldn't be talking about it. But you know, anytime anyone's asked me favorite Machine Head songs, I can always say Descend of Shade of Night and Violate instantly are the two that I always come to mind.
Yeah, it's a conversation we've had quite a bit about as well, obviously in the track by track for the More Things Change as well. I echo your sentiments on the strength of More Things Change over Burn My Eyes. I'm always sort of conscious, like, let's just not compare them. They are two unique albums in a catalogue that was at least...
The only reason I ever say that and compare them is simply because of like the general hater comment of they didn't do anything good since Burn My Eyes, and that is such nonsense because the very next album was better than it.
Yes, and also like let's not throw shade at the Burning Red. There's some killer stuff on that album, man.
Absolutely, yeah.
You know, we'll have to one day we will start. We'll do a video, big question, and it'll be something along the lines of explain the Love Machine, and I reckon we could probably just back and forth over an hour and a half. Specifically about a band. We'll keep that in mind for the future. Right, my second one then, sticking with Through the Ashes of Empires. Through the Ashes of Empires has what I still consider to date to be the best intro song of a Machine Head album. The most incredible example of how to start an album off that when they used to do it and live, it used to just get me buzzing, man, because it was the opening song of their live shows for a while. And, you know, other albums have good intros as well, but nothing compares to Imperium. Nothing can touch Imperium. That is a fucking blast to the face. That is a wonderful, wonderful example of the new Machine Head that existed in Ashes of the Empires, while still being like, this is going to be heavy. Relax. Oh, yeah, there'll be a melodic song later on, a bit more moody and a bit more this. And then later on, we'll get progressive and weird and do some really unusual stuff. But right now, here's a really cool fucking introductory track that just blows your mind and fucks you up, but is also really cool sounding and has layers and depth and stuff like that. It's Imperium, man. Love it.
Yeah, it's a great song. I still think to this day it's Machine Head's heaviest track they've ever done. I genuinely do. Not just the sound, the style, the way it's delivered, you know, and the fact that I love the story kind of that comes like with it when you think about like where that's the first track after the Supercharger era. You know, they've been dropped by their label. They're fucking angry, man, and man, you get that from that song, isn't it?
It is. It's a wonderful, wonderful piece of music, which then brings us to the third one.
Yeah, so it was the hardest one to do, like, and it wasn't because of not wanting to put the song in that I did put in, but it was simply because that there are a lot of great songs. I put this one in first. I took it out. I replaced it with Locust, the song from Onto the Locust. But then after a while, and I still feel like I'm doing Locust dirty a little bit, but I had to settle on Halo. You know, Halo is majestic, man. The Blackening is a phenomenal album. You know, I like it. I think it's well respected in them regards too, which is great. Something Machine Head haven't always easily found was like global respect, I guess. But with the Blackening, it's pretty much global. But I think even on that album, which is a very strong album, Halo stands out. Like, it's not every song's strong, including Halo. I think Halo is a level above everything else on that album. It's such a fantastic track live. it's the same thing. You can see the style preferences with me, you know, it's the same sort of idea with like a Descend the Shades of Night, about Violate. You know, I love the massive solos. I love the build it up to the song kind of kicking in. I love the moments. We speak about this in metal ourselves sometimes, don't we? And like all of these songs for me have moments. You know, there's a little bit in the second verse where he extends the note a bit more differently and longer than the first verse. In the same way, Descends the Shades of Night in the second verse suddenly has a little cymbal come in at the drums for the guitar, and it's moments that turn a song from strong to special, you know. And Halo's a special track, and it's a phenomenal live track, man. It really does. Like, no matter how many times I've seen it, and we've seen it a lot, it still is as spectacular every time. And now that they've kind of, you know, like, it's a weird thing with Machine Head gigs, isn't it? A little bit. So there's almost like some choreographed dancing or moves to certain songs. And like Halo has the big kind of clapping intro, and you get faster and faster. And now they do their big Halo ending, and confetti explodes out. And you know, I think I love, like, you know, we know I love Machine Head, and I think there's so many strong songs, but I don't know if there's any that are ever going to be quite as special, like as an overall package, like, you know, with the impact that it had. And I do remember the first time I heard Halo and having similar feelings to like the first time I heard Imperium, Descend the Shades and Light, songs like that, you know, and I was like, wow, this is, what the fuck have they done here? This is next level shit. Only reason, I guess, I called on it a bit, maybe the same reason as you, is I've heard it a lot. Like, that's all it is. Nothing else. I've seen it live a lot. I've heard it a lot. You know, I don't go to it on my music player to try and find it. But whenever I see it, I still get hairs raising my arms. I still feel exhilarated and excited, you know. So yeah, Halo.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I pretty much gave game away at the start by describing what was arguably Machine Head's best written, best structured, best track overall. But also, I wanted to leave off out of spite, and the spite came from the fact that in my head, I'm like, you've heard this song so many times, you've seen this song live so many times. Do you really still have that same strength of feeling? And it came down to, after looking at other tracks and thinking about them, and I ummed and ahed about Sailing to the Black, you know, as well.
Good song, man.
It is a really fucking good song. And then I love Bastards, and I'm like, come on, man. They are far inferior. You know this is a brilliant song, but you also know you love it. And you remember the last time you saw Machine, which was quite fucking recent, considering it was actually quite recent. They still got to that point, and you were like, yep, forever this song. And it is that. I actually can openly debate in my head, ignoring the personal feelings that might be attached to Descend the Shades of Night. But I can debate, is a Halo a better track? It might be. It might be better. It might be better produced. It might be better put together and all of that and stuff. And I can see all of that. And I get it. And the fact that that's even a debate is amazing, considering the impact of Descend the Shades of Night and that album overall. It is in this list. It would have been, I'd have been lying to myself, and I'd have probably ended up feeling, we've been talking here, and I'd have probably been trying to find some bullshit way around what you had just said to try and justify why clenching the fist of dissent is there instead, and sounding nonsensical for it.
Yeah.
It is Halo, of course it is. And there's our 3 favorite tracks. Yes, we are similar on one. And overall, I think you can kind of see the direction we go in. But again, this is 3 favorite tracks amongst albums that always have at least a handful. So you go, oh, that's really good. Except maybe Supercharger has good tracks, but maybe not on par with the best. You know what I mean? What are you going to do? Machine Head. Do you kind of agree with our thoughts about these specific tracks? Have you got your own? Do you massively disagree? Let us know in the comments.
Thank you very much for watching. If you liked what you saw, please help us out by giving us a thumbs up and hitting that subscribe button. If you really liked what you saw, consider donating to keep the website and channel running by buying us a coffee via our coffee page or picking up some merch from our Big Cartel store. You can check us out on gbhbl.com, as well as via our social media, Facebook, Instagram and Twitter, as well as listen to our interviews via SoundCloud, Apple Music and Spotify. Just search for GBHBL. Games, horror and heavy metal. What else is life for?